The Atlantic Ocean currents are undergoing changes due to climate change. Unfortunately, these modifications could have drastic consequences for the planet, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. In this video, we will explore what is happening and how it could lead to long-term catastrophes. To better understand this topic, it is essential to discuss the AMOC, Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. This is a vast system of ocean water flow, divided into two main stages. The first occurs in the South Atlantic, between South America and Africa, where a higher incidence of solar radiation warms the ocean surface, as this region is close to the equator. Local winds transport these warm waters to the North Atlantic, reaching Greenland and the Arctic. In this context, the Gulf Stream is part of this complex AMOC system. It moves along the east coast of North America and distributes heat to these areas. The heat generated in the equatorial region is transported by the waters to the colder northern zones, which is crucial for ensuring milder temperatures and the habitability of the Northern Hemisphere. The second stage of the AMOC occurs near Greenland. In this region, the water cools due to the cold and dry climate, and part of the liquid turns into ice, expelling salt. The remaining water, now colder and saltier, becomes denser and sinks, filling the deeper layers of the ocean. Over thousands of years, this column of water moves toward the South Atlantic and disperses into other oceans. Meanwhile, the warm surface waters from the south continue to be pushed north by the winds. This cycle forms a kind of oceanic conveyor belt, essential for the planet's climate balance. But what happens if this system collapses? That is the big problem. Climate change, intensified by human activity and the excessive CO2 emissions from burning fossil fuels, is directly impacting the AMOC. Global warming weakens the cooling process in Greenland and accelerates glacial melting, reducing the water's salinity. As a result, the water's density decreases, preventing it from sinking and continuing its course southward. This disruption could lead to the collapse of the AMOC. Measurements taken since 2004 indicate a progressive weakening of ocean circulation. Over the past 20 years, scientists have observed variations in the average temperature of Greenland and the Arctic, and have monitored the speed and depth of oceanic flow that transports warm waters northward and cold waters southward. However, these studies cover a relatively short period, requiring longer records to understand the AMOC's long-term behavior, Lima points out. Reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, did not predict an AMOC collapse in the 21st century. However, this issue gained attention again in 2023 with the publication of a study from the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, which reignited warnings about the risks of this phenomenon to global climate. A study published in the journal Nature Communications estimated that the AMOC collapse could occur within this century if CO2 emissions continue at their current pace. According to the research, this shutdown could happen between 2025 and 2095. However, some members of the scientific community received this prediction with skepticism. Professor Penny Holliday from the UK's National Oceanography Centre stated in 2023 that there is no concrete evidence that the AMOC is significantly slowing down. According to her, while there is a possibility that this ocean circulation could change drastically, there is still no certainty about when or if this will actually occur. Meteorologist John Robson from the University of Reading, also in the UK, reinforced that projections about the possible AMOC collapse are uncertain and that predicting a shutdown as early as 2025 should be approached with caution. But what would happen if the AMOC stopped functioning? A glimpse of this scenario was portrayed in the movie The Day After Tomorrow, 2004, which explores the extreme consequences of global warming, followed by a sudden cooling of the Earth. In the film, New York is devastated by tsunamis and an intense cold wave. In reality, however, the changes would not occur so abruptly, but rather over decades, with severe and progressive climate consequences. The impacts of a potential AMOC collapse would be significant. Parts of Europe and North America could experience substantial cooling, as they would no longer receive the heat transported by the warm waters of the South Atlantic. Additionally, shifts in climate patterns could lead to droughts in some regions and floods in others. Brazil, especially the Northeast, could also be affected, as changes in the rainfall regime would impact the Amazon, accelerating the process of forest savannization. The equatorial region would face even more heat and rising sea levels, putting islands and coastal areas at risk. The economic sector would also suffer impacts, with losses for fishing and agriculture. However, there is still uncertainty about how these effects would manifest, as major ocean currents tend to reorganize in some way, and the practical consequences of these changes in warm and cold water flows are not yet fully understood. Oceanographer Olga Sato, an associate professor at the Institute of Oceanography at the University of São Paulo, highlights that many of these climate transformations can already be observed today. According to her, the impacts of climate change are already underway, affecting different aspects of society and the economy. This is not just something for the future. We can already notice some of these changes today, and the trend is for them to worsen in the next 10 to 20 years, warns the researcher. The most effective way to reduce these risks, according to experts, is to decrease CO2 emissions, primarily by reducing the use of fossil fuels. For this, a structural change in society is necessary. The transition of the global energy matrix is neither a simple nor a fast process, but it is essential to slow down global warming. Climate scientist Tim Lenton, from the University of Exeter in the UK, has expressed concern about the impacts of an AMOC collapse. According to him, the effects would be so abrupt and severe that in some regions, adaptation would be nearly impossible. However, for Joel Hershey, division leader at the UK's National Oceanography Centre, there are more immediate challenges to address. He highlights that the rapid rise in temperatures in recent years and the extreme weather events associated with this warming represent a more urgent concern than the possible AMOC collapse. Global warming is not a future hypothesis. It is already impacting society now, he stated. Given this scenario, the big question remains, what will we do about it? Until next time.